We fast, we serve, we lead, we show up, we say the right words, we lift our hands at the right time. But there are questions we are afraid to ask because we think asking them makes us unfaithful. So instead of asking, we hide. Tonight, we stop hiding. You stop hiding. I stop hiding. Good evening. My name is Choma Lena, and this is Holy but Human on the Hard Truth. This is not a program about perfection. It's not a performance. It's not a place where we pretend we have everything together. This is a space for honest conversations about faith, love, desire, waiting, loneliness, discipline, and real life. Because loneliness was never meant to erase your humanity. It was meant to guide it. You don't become less human because you love God. If anything, you become more aware of how human you really are. In many faith spaces, we talk a lot about standards. We talk about purity, we talk about patience, we talk about obedience, but we don't always talk about what it feels like to wait. What it feels like to want companionship. What it feels like when prayers don't immediately change emotions. So people learn to behave spiritually without learning how to process emotionally. I repeat it. A lot of us learn how to behave spiritually without learning how to process emotionally. And that creates a dangerous gap. A gap between what we show and what we actually feel. On Sundays, we look strong. On Mondays, we feel confused. And because no one wants to look weak, everyone suffers quietly. And silence is where shame grows. Let's begin with something fundamental, something foundational. Desire is not sin. Wanting love is not rebellion. Wanting companionship is not spiritual failure. Feeling attraction does not cancel your devotion. You were created with emotions. You were created with longing. You were created capable of connection. The issue is not that you feel. The issue is whether you allow feelings to lead or you allow wisdom to lead. Faith is not denial of desire. Faith is the discipline of desire. That is a very different conversation, and one we rarely have. Looking at holiness without honesty, the truth is, it actually becomes performance. You ask me why. Sometimes we are not struggling with temptation. We are struggling with pretending. We say, I'm fine. I'm just focusing on God. I'm not thinking about it. But inside, we are tired of being strong, tired of not being able to talk openly, tired of feeling like acknowledging the struggle makes us less spiritual. But honesty is not weakness, my friend. Honesty is maturity. A faith that cannot handle truth will eventually collapse under pressure. Holiness is not pretending you don't feel. Holiness is not pretending you don't feel. Holiness is choosing, my friend, integrity while you feel. You understand? Holiness is choosing integrity while you feel. Silence is where many people lose their way. People rarely fall suddenly. Honestly, people rarely fall suddenly. Most people drift quietly, not because they didn't love God, but because they didn't have space to talk, to ask, to wrestle, to be guided without being judged. When healthy conversations disappear, confusion takes their place. Confusion takes its place. And confusion, when left alone, makes decisions for people. When you leave confusion alone, it absolutely makes decisions for people. That is why we must create spaces like this where truth and grace can exist together. I know what it feels like to love God deeply and still wrestle internally. Honestly, I do. I know what it feels like to love God deeply and still wrestle internally, to want to do what is right and still desire closeness, partnership, understanding, presence. If there is anybody who knows this firsthand, it's me, Chomalina. And I remember asking myself, why do I feel guilty for being honest about this? And I realized something that changed me. God was not asking me to erase my humanity. He was asking me to walk with Him through it. God is asking you to walk with Him through your humanity. That realization removed shame and replaced it with responsibility. The moment I realized that, I was no longer ashamed. I became responsible. So if you're watching me live, let me ask you something, just like I'm also asking you here with me. Have you ever felt guilty for having completely human emotions while trying to live a life of faith? I can see you winking. And if you're watching later, don't answer me, answer yourself. If you're going to watch this later, answer yourself. Because transformation doesn't begin with denial. It begins with acknowledgement. You need to first acknowledge. You need to first acknowledge. You're not broken because you feel. You're not failing because you're waiting. You're not less spiritual because the journey is hard. You're not broken because you feel. You're not failing rather because you're waiting. You're not less spiritual because the journey is hard. You are holy and you're human. You are holy and you're human. Those are not opposites. They're meant to work together. Faith is not the absence of struggle. Faith is learning how to walk through struggle wisely. This week, don't hide. Name what you're feeling. Pray honestly, not perfectly. Speak to someone you trust. Someone you trust. Refuse shame. Choose growth. Because growth begins where honesty lives. Growth begins where honesty lives. Growth begins where honesty lives. If this conversation made you uncomfortable, that's okay. Discomfort is often where truth begins. And now, my friend, this is holy but human, where faith meets real life and where we stop pretending and start growing. I'm Chomalina, and I will see you next time if you're brave enough to be honest.